up, guys? So last episode, you watched us get the engine out. Today we're gonna go ahead and get it on this crane, get it on the stand, and start tearing it down. So our main objectives right now are gonna be to take off the transmission, the transaxle, and then also the exhaust headers and turbo, because those are just important parts of our project. So let's get after it.
You recording me? I poured coolant right in the area I don't want it to be poured on.
We're off to a good start.
Yeah. So that's the hose came out of it.
Alright, so we decided to go ahead and get the exhaust off first, because that'll make it easier to get this transaxle off. So we got Cohen busting bolts loose. Of course, we blasted those with the PB earlier. Just soaked it. Just soaked it for sure, but hey. How many have we broken so far?
All of them.
No, we broke them loose, Cohen.
Oh.
Not broken. So they're a little rusty there, you can kind of tell.
Yeah.
So we're a little worried, but we'll see.
Should be good.
Oh, not that one. This one.
Oh, you don't need to take it off. We're taking the cat off because the cat is blocking a bracket that's holding on the turbo to the block. So we can't take this off until we take off the cat.
I don't know why.
See it back there. You got an angle of the bracket on this side.
Yeah, you can see it, but you don't know what you're looking at, so.
Well, it's there.
Yeah.
We'll show you pull it off. So we're about to get it undone.
You recording?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right, we got the last bolt off. It sucked. You got to take the heat shields off, but here we go with the cat.
Filter.
It's a little jiggly.
I don't think it's supposed to just
Nice.
fall out. It is not.
It looks pretty cool.
Yeah, dude.
So that's what filters your emissions and makes the planet safe.
Yeah. Lots of money.
So we're gonna get rid of that.
Yeah. I think we got a downpipe with this kit. That thing's garbage. So that thing's shrunk, it looks like.
It shrunk?
It looks like it. Yeah, bend it forward first. Now let's look at the top.
It's stuck on that cord.
This thing.
Yeah.
Now we're clear of the studs on the.
There, yeah.
There it is, boys. Here we go.
You got that all by yourself?
Yeah. Got it.
Cool. Dude, nice turbo. Go
This
play
is
in your
heavy.
engine. Big boy.
Put it over your head. Lift it. Yeah. Yeah.
Now we can see most of the bolts and the starter location. Everything's just easier to work on. So now we can lift it up, take the train out.
There's a little.
So Keaton's banging on this car to get the transmission off, by the way.
We don't have a gap opening up over here.
I had to knock it right
Hammer for this.
Yeah.
That bolt mounts in the way.
Put the 2x4 on.
We support the weight of it. If you can hit it with a hammer, maybe, if that fits.
There we go. Watch out those wires. Oh shit.
Ta-da!
Oh wow, look at all that.
Oh yeah.
That's some clutch material right there. The throw-up bearing, listen to that. Pretty bad.
Oh yeah.
That shaft play, this is pretty good though. So transmission's overall pretty good, except for throw out.
Is this?
And we're about to
this
find
the
out.
factory clutch. Okay.
I think it's the original.
Yeah.
We're about to find out how bad that clutch is. Let's pull her on out and see. And then we can put her on the engine stand. This thing's gonna fall. That's some good. There we go. It's not the best, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's down to the rivets. I can definitely see why he thought it was slipping. You can see the heat spots all over the flex plate. And the clutch itself. This thing is worn like a record.
Oh, look at that.
That line in the middle is right where the rivets are. You can feel it.
Here, Jacob. Look at all that.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah, this side's not the worst with waviness, but it's definitely obviously overheated. Yeah, good thing you got a new clutch. But yeah, this one's terrible. This was riding on the rivets of the clutch, basically. So all of his clutch force was on these rivets.
That's all that was holding it, really.
Yeah, which is why it was slipping a whole bunch. Because this clutch material wears quicker than the rivet material. So as soon as that clutch engages, that clutch wears out and immediately goes to that metal, and that's going to start grinding into this pressure plate. And that's why there's a divot in it.
Yeah.
And that's basically what's riding on. It's crazy.
Cool. Let's get it on the stand.
Find out. We might need spacers for this. Or take the clutch off, or the plug off. I'm here with Cohen, our apprentice, and I'm teaching him a couple things with this. So, on our teardown, we've learned a couple things. First thing I want to point out is on the exhaust side, after taking off the exhaust manifold, you can look in there and see the exhaust valves are really white. So Cohen, he actually had a good idea before we start tearing apart further to set this engine at top dead center, which means getting the first cylinder in firing order at the top of its compression stroke. And that's when the timing marks up with the 0 on the timing cover, and the piston is on compression. So when he pulled out the spark plug, I told him to give you the spark plug. You can take a peek at it. This as well is all white. This is white. Why that's white, everything. It's white because it's running lean. It's lean because it doesn't have enough fuel. So there's a kind of a chemical reaction happening, and it's called a stoichiometric reaction, to where you have to have the right amount of fuel with the right amount of air to make the combustion happen perfectly. And that's a 14.7 parts of air per part of fuel. And when it runs lean, it ends up with a higher temperature. And when metal gets hot, it turns white. So we have white spark plugs and white exhaust valves showing us that there's too much air. So there's a couple things that could cause that. One being the fuel injectors not putting out enough fuel. The others being multiple sensors telling us that there's not enough air going into the engine. One being the oxygen sensor or air fuel sensor, a MAP sensor, throttle position sensor. I said that. O2 sensor, yeah. Even bad timing could cause that. But we're gonna go through it all, make sure everything's good. He has a lot of gauges on his dashboard, so we can double check everything once it's all back together. And we're gonna figure out what the cause is for this. Oh, you actually said, Jacob.
Yeah, so another thing,
fuel filter.
yeah, the fuel filter, if you have a clogged fuel filter, you're not gonna get the right pressure to your fuel rail. And also, if you have a failing fuel pump, you're not gonna get the right fuel that you need to match your air.
Exactly.
And it's especially kind of a problem on a turbo car because you have greater fuel requirements.
So basically anything in the engine management system or the engine itself that has to do with fuel or air could cause this issue. And we're gonna figure it out. So we're gonna begin taking this engine apart. We have to do, recently found out that we're gonna be doing the rod bearings from an oil change and taking the oil pan off, doing the whole timing kit. So there's a couple basic things that we have to do maintenance-wise before we start throwing the mods on. So let's get to it.
Yep, we'll let you know what else we find along the way.
This doesn't relate to this. That should be the opposite. Dyslexic people have a better understanding of this.
No, they have no idea how to like left and right.
Dyslexic people
Dyslexic people
view
don't
the
know left and
world
right.
in 3 dimensions.
I don't know how to treat it.
Alright, welcome back guys. Go ahead and start rebuilding the engine. As you can see, it's all torn apart and we're getting ready to put it back together. And we got a bunch of new parts. I'll show you this right here. What these are gonna be our new rod bearings. So these go to your connecting rods, and these are the bearings that go between your connecting rods and your crankshaft. And they're gonna be new. We also have our main bearings. Whoa! These go where the journals of the crankshaft sit inside the block. And we're gonna replace those too, so that all his wear items inside the engine are fresh before he goes to mod this and further boost it. We're gonna start taking this down, and once we got the bearings out, we'll check the clearance with plastic gauge, and we'll do that with the new shells. And we'll show you that process, but basically you torque it down to spec with the new shell with this little piece of plastic, and it'll smash it. And how much smashed it gets will tell you what the clearance is between that bearing and the journal. So we're gonna do that, check his clearances to make sure his engine's good to go as we put it back together.
Before we get into checking the oil clearances on the bearings, it's important to check, while it's all still together, the thrust clearances. So the piston rods themselves have a thrust clearance, and the crankshaft does as well. But the Toyota manual shows just checking the piston rod clearances for thrust, which is its sideways movement. That inherently does kind of check the crank thrust, because if the crank thrust is out of whack, it's going to cause the piston rods to be way far out of whack. So I have a dial caliper set up and measures the actual thrust down to the, I think, what is it, 10,000th of an inch. And the spec for this is 6 to 12 thousandths of an inch of play, with 13 thousandths being the max. So I have it hooked up right here. You can zoom in on this dial caliper and watch when I push this piston back and forth. I'm just using my hands. So all the way down to 0, and it goes to a max of 8 thousandths, which is definitely in spec, and that's standard for, you know, the engine from factory. So we're good on that. It means we don't have to replace anything from the crank to the piston rods so far. But I'm gonna check the next 3, and then if they all check out, we'll go ahead and start tearing it down for the oil clearances. All right, we're taking piston number 1 rod cap off. Luckily, the sides of them are stamped for matching each other, so it's kind of hard to get confused, but we're gonna inspect the bearing on it. Honestly, it doesn't look too bad. Let me get a rag.
Be right back.
All right, all cleaned off. Check that out. It's actually really nice. It has minimal wear. The guy that owns this car is actually like on top of his oil changes and uses very good oil, so I'm not surprised. I think it was what 120,000 miles for this engine, which is surprisingly good for what it is. You can see it beginning to wear that first layer, but really evenly, which is nice, and there's no oil streak wear from that inlet on there. But the sides, you know, that's what it looked like originally. And then the bottom peak, that's where it's at its worst, and it's not that bad.
Yeah. What do you think?
I'm gonna go ahead and pop the rest off and take a peek at it.
Hey, for reference guys, I have a E46 M3 rod bearing. Those are infamous for wear issues, and you can see this one is much more clearly worn in comparison to the one that we just pulled out of this Toyota.
Yeah. I think in order to get the bearing off the other side of this on the connecting rod, you gotta knock it back a little bit, and it runs in a little bit of danger of getting these studs scratching up on the journal. So smart idea, grab you some rubber hose, clip it and cut it, put it on those studs to mitigate that issue. According to other people, piston 4 is notoriously the worst with the bearings and thrust, but check this out. It's actually better than cylinder 1. A little bit less scratching, but just about the same wear. So it's pretty promising on this. And by the way, all the thrust clearances on these were all the same at 8 thousandths of an inch. All right, we're gonna take the top cap or top bearing off piston 4. So you gotta push it back. Don't be too crazy with it. Get it down to where you can clear it of the journal, and then you can see in there, I'm just going to use this little plastic tool to pop the bearing free. Watch out, camera. All right. And you can see that bearing curled up a little bit. I'll go in there and grab it. And clean this off so you can see it. The top bearings actually have more wear on them, naturally, because that's the power stroke of the piston. And that's, you know, this is your area of power, that angle right there. And it's not really that bad, honestly. With this coming off, that means that there's more wear on the front of the engine side, which is the output. And that's due to the actual thrust clearances we were measuring. So if there was 0 thrust clearance, that would be a complete even wear. But that's actually in spec, so we're all good. Go.
This one's tough because things right there. There it is. So guys, this is the last main bearing cap that we're taking off. So you can kind of see that's pretty clean, and that's been the case with all of them, really. Overall, looks like his engine was pretty healthy. You know, there's a little bit of wear here and there, but the good news is it's all pretty clean, and great news is we're going to be putting new ones in regardless and checking all the tolerance on it. So good for him. But we'll go ahead and show you over here where we have set up all the bearings, and just take a quick look. Here's all his internals.
Yeah.
So as you can see, you're getting good light on that.
Yeah.
You know, they're all pretty clean.
A little bit more wear on the piston rod bearings than on the mains, but
You can see this one, which was at the back of the engine, which is common to have the most wear. Definitely has more visible wear than some of the other ones.
so if you got confused and you're tearing this engine apart, just a quick tip, front engine, the number 1 faces towards you. The front of the engine right there being the harmonic balancer, back here being the flywheel. So it just goes in order like that. And then the rod bearings have marks, or the rod caps have marks below the numbers that match up. These little like dashes, those match up, and those will be on the passenger or Japanese driver's side.
I think we might have shown you this already. This is the front bearing, and you can see there is some wear there. But still, nothing too crazy.
Well, we can take the crank out now. So,
Yeah, I should just do that.
yeah, I'll take this side, you take that side. It's gonna be a little massaging. There we go. And then I'm gonna put my side down and we're gonna stand it straight up. It's important to have this have it vertical when you're storing it. That way there's absolutely no chance of warpage on the crankshaft. Same with camshafts as well.
Yeah.
So now we can get out the block side main caps right here and the 2 bearings right there. And you can inspect even easier on the inside of the cylinder walls, see the wear on it. We're gonna get to that in a little bit here. And oh dude, how heavy is that crank?
I'd say this is at least 50 pounds.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe 60.
Whoa.
It's pretty heavy.
We're gonna take a quick peek at the cylinder walls and all the bearings and give a little bit of assumptions of what we're seeing here. So let's take a peek at these. All the cylinder walls are about the same throughout, which is pretty good, and they're all actually in pretty good condition. So if you zoom in on, I think this one's pretty easy to see, the wall that is in line with the crankshaft, all very good. You still see the cross hatching in there, which is the horizontal plane crisscross pattern that's etched into the walls, which is necessary. And then along the skirts, which is in the same plane as the rod, so it's this way. There's not much wear there. You can see a little bit of the skirt scrapes right there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But honestly, like nothing really to be worried about at all. That's really normal, if not less than normal. So not much piston slap at all. No skirt scrape. It's really good condition. So that's impressive. But all right, so we're about to get the crank back in to test the main cap oil clearances. We cleaned out all of the journals really good with microfiber and what is this? Denatured alcohol, leaves no residue, dries really fast. And we also clean off the bearings on both sides, get whatever machining oil off of it, and make sure there's no dust on it. We install the top caps for the main, and those are the ones with the oil grooves in it. And once we get all of those installed with the upper thrust bearings, then we'll put the crank in, and then we can test by putting the caps on top of the crank for the oil clearances and make sure everything's good. With the plastic gauge, of course, so we'll show you that once we get there. Also, before you throw the crank in, it's a good idea to throw the upper connecting rod bearings in, just so you don't have to mess around the crank when it's in there. Makes it easier for yourself. Mess around with the pistons.
Quick guys, I'm going to show you what we're doing with the plastic gauge. So here's a plastic gauge. You can see right here I just use a razor blade and cut off a section that is close to the same width as these bearing or journals. So then you can open it up, pack it up. You can see the green plastic right there. That's the plastic that we will now place on that journal to test out the clearance. Once it gets tightened and torqued in there properly, it'll flatten out and it'll end up being close to one of these widths. We'll show you that, but that's how we determine. Keaton's getting ready to put the cap on. You can see the plastic gauge in there right there.
We just torqued these down to 43 foot-pounds. Now we're taking them off to check the clearance. There's the plastic gauge. We're gonna measure that at the widest point. A little bit on the bearing too, we need to clean off. But let's get that gauge out. All right, so for everything but the main cap number 3, they're supposed to fall within 6 10,000ths to 13 thousandths of an inch. So we're gonna measure it real quick. And I already did it, so I'm just gonna tell you. It's right between the 15 thousandths and the 2 thousandths.
All right, guys, we got good news. We checked the plastic gauge and all the clearances were good to go for the crankshaft and the main bearings. So now I'm gonna go ahead and get lubed up. This is a gear oil, assembly lubricant. This is extra special lube that will help lubricate these rotating and points of contact for when we go to, first start up this engine and before oil is all through it all. So here we go.
And it's trying to hit the word count. We're doing the last plastic gauge test on the piston cap. Make sure everything's in spec. We already torqued it down, so now we get to take an inspection on it. And we're looking at the widest point, just around 15 thousandths. And the spec is 9 10 thousandths to 22 thousandths. So we're right in the middle, which is perfect. Love that. Now you gotta clean it off and put it back together.
With the internals checked out, with some new bearings installed, we went back to putting this motor back together. This motor got a fresh water pump, oil pump, timing kit, and a whole lot more. Here you can see we put on a fresh pressure plate, clutch, and flywheel.
Let's see. It's now. Oh, no problem. Perfect.
Before we put on the valve cover, we decided to clean it off and powder coat it. One of our goals was to make this car look as good as it would perform. The metallic blue finish came out really nice and was a very close paint match to the car itself. as we continue to put this car back together, there'll be a few more showpiece parts that get similar treatment, being powder coated in this blue, or maybe some other
That
colors.
looks pretty good, yeah? I dig it.
Definitely looks darker on camera,
It does.
but with the valve cover on and most of the engine reassembled, our next step was to get this transaxle back onto the motor so that we could get prepared to put the motor back in the car.